Hi, happy Tuesday. So I finally went and bought a battery for my fire alarm, so that's why you don't hear the noise anymore. And I took out the trash today, and I bought a new shower curtain, and I ordered a new TV stand. So if you actually know me and you've been over to my apartment, you know that I didn't buy any furniture last year. I just kind of felt like there was just so much shit going on with me, and I was trying to figure out what I was going to do with my life. I do feel like this little situation that I have going on here right now, I'm going to at least have to live this out for the year. So, sorry. And I went to Target tonight, and I got something called Sun Pop, a bubbly brute. Well, it's from Spain. So, this is what we're sipping on tonight. And I actually want to talk about, this is another one of our literacy chats, but we're going to be a little bit more specific tonight. We want to talk about third grade for a moment because some of my students aren't reading on grade level, and that's really sad. And so I talked about this in the other video, but actually, wait, let me grab a book and I'll be back. So our literacy coach gave me this book. It's called Guided Reading, Good First Teaching for All Children. So if you see at the top, it's by Fountas and Pinnel. If you know anything about reading and comprehension, or if you go back and kind of read some of my blog posts that were about literacy and phonics, Fountas and Pinnel, they work on phonics and phonemes, and they basically letter books by reading level. So they are like the people who do that. Now, we're not gonna like obviously read this whole book, but what we will do, and maybe we can actually just read the second, there's two chapters that actually look pretty good. What is guided reading and building on early learning? So there's an introduction. We can actually just read the introduction. There's like a foreword. I was trying to decide what to read to you guys so that you can get an idea of what this is. We can just start at the beginning. Several years ago, I was working with a group of teachers, helping them think about their teaching of writing. One first grade teacher was particularly frustrated because her students had a lot to say but would not write. That's a thing. We discussed possible mini lessons that would help show her students how letters and sounds are used to communicate ideas, and later in her classroom, I modeled a piece of writing showing the children how to say a word, listen for the sounds, and write letters for the sound they heard. At the end of the demonstration, one boy threw up his hands in the air, so that's all there is to it? Why didn't someone tell us this before? I had the same why didn't someone tell us this before feeling as I read Guided Reading, Good First Teaching for All Children. Though there are some books and journal articles that mention guided reading, none has treated this topic with such depth and breadth within the context of a balanced literacy program. Irene Fountas and Gay Sue Pinnell help teachers understand first how to assess children through careful observation, and then how to go the next step, take the children from where they are to where they need to go. That's a big thing, especially for students who are coming into the classroom reading below the reading level that they should be reading at, because they could be starting at 0 and they need to go to like level J. There's all those letters in between, A, B, C, D, E, right? At a recent conference at Lesley College in Cambridge, Massachusetts, Barbara Watson, a New Zealand literacy educator, reminded attendees of how important it is for teachers to teach. It's not enough to just create opportunities for children to do things they can already do, she said. Instead, it's up to us to provide powerful teaching so that children can move, or better yet, leap forward. In recent years, we have come a long way in our thinking about helping beginning readers. Many classrooms are print rich and have the best reading materials that money can buy. Big books, charts, an abundance of quality children's literature. However, although whole class experiences such as shared reading and literature discussions offer children many important benefits, it's difficult for teachers to observe reading behaviors in individual children in order to help them build an effective, independent reading process. This comprehensive book addresses the questions teachers most often ask about teaching reading. How do I use running records to assess and guide reading? How do I group and regroup children? How do I match books with readers? How do I teach for strategies? What are strategies? What about children who don't know any letters and or sounds? What will all the other children be doing while I'm conducting guided reading groups? How can I organize instruction to meet the needs of all my students? How do I keep records of what everyone is doing? How do I evaluate my teaching of guided reading? In answering these questions and many more, the authors draw from their own teaching and from their numerous years of research and experience helping teachers develop literacy programs. As they lay out their guided reading approach, their utmost respect for both teachers and students is ever present. Children can learn to read, and teachers can play an important role, and as they continue to encounter diverse student populations, they are constantly reassessing their beliefs and practices. There have been many debates about teaching practices and how we can reach all of our students. Some educators believe the problem is an emphasis on phonics versus no phonics, basal readers versus literature-based instruction, homogeneous grouping versus heterogeneous grouping, early intervention versus wait and see, accepting approximations versus expecting correctness, and direct explicit instruction versus discovery. As we go back and forth on these issues, one of the most important variables in an individual classroom teacher is an individual classroom teacher who understands how children acquire literacy and the role she or he plays in helping each student achieve his or her potential. When we help teachers see possibilities in their reading and their teaching, we help their students. And this book is filled with possibilities for veteran teachers and is a must for students in undergraduate and graduate language arts courses. Many features in this book help teachers continue their learning. Suggestions for professional development at the end of each chapter encourage readers to observe and study their students and to conduct their own classroom-based research. A self-assessment for guided reading lets teachers see where they are on the continuum and where they want to go. The appendixes are a treasure in and of themselves. Alphabet books, icons for managing center activities, record-keeping forms, transcripts of book introductions, and running records, and most needed of all, a bibliography of leveled books. Oh, that's actually really cool. On the first page in Chapter 1, Gay and Irene remind us that all children possess the fundamental attributes they need to become literate. Guided reading, good first teaching for all children, provides the best available help to support classroom teachers as they work toward making literacy a reality for all children. I'm not going to read the acknowledgments, but I think I will read the introduction. And then maybe we can go on. We can do a few, we can read a few chapters of this tonight. So there's 2 chapters that look pretty interesting. Chapter 1, what is guided reading? And Chapter 2, building on early learning. let's talk for a second. Let's just chat about why this is basically important. I care about comprehension. So in order to get to a state of comprehension, or where you understand, where you can basically read to learn, like you can read something and then you can understand what the writer is trying to say, and then you walk away with new information after digesting the information that you just read. That's like, then you start to understand a story, right? Some people who are illiterate get quite a lot from movies because it's like on a screen, it's in motion, people are acting it out. And that's one way of storytelling, but you can't really get as descriptive as you'd like in a film, because some things you're just not going to be able to capture on camera. And also it's just about like whose point of view are you trying to convey? Whose point of view do you care about? Some things that are interesting in movies is you could actually be way more interested in like a second tier character, as opposed to like the character that the film is technically about, because that character is just more interesting. I'm not losing my train of thought. I just have so many ideas on this topic. And I think that there's just like not enough focus on why people, like, getting over that initial hump of literacy is very, very hard. Like, learning how to read for the first time is very, very hard. Like, once you get it, it makes sense because you know phonics and phonemes. Maybe you understand, like, you know, Greek vowel sounds and things like that. And so learning other languages and stuff is like not very difficult. Learning new things and understanding new concepts. Like, I've talked about cross-cultural communication for a very long time, and the big idea there is like people from different cultural groups see the world in a different way. I think we're starting to see a really clear example of this with all of the things happening with the Queen. There's like one side of the world who's like, we love the Queen, she's all queen, and you have a whole other group who's like, fuck the Queen, that's not my queen, she's a colonizer. This is the same woman, she lived the same life, like she, you know, both sides seem to like know what she did and what she didn't do and what she stood for, and they have very different feelings about her. That is real. That is like how life actually is, where, you know, you're living in the same place as someone else, but your lived experience as them is just different because you're walking in a different body than they are. So that's cross-cultural communication, but you can't even really start to get there if you don't have like general communication and really literacy. How are you going to understand stories? How are you going to unpack stories if you can't read? Like, most stories are written down. I mean, now a lot of people are telling stories on YouTube, just kind of like this. But before YouTube, how were people telling these stories? And it takes a long time. It's like this repetitive practice of like seeing sight words on the wall. You, cat, dog, they, at, bear, hat, a, and, apple, tree. And being able to put those like sounds together. Tr, owl, vowel sounds, e, silent y. Air, right? Like bear, not like air, like A-I-R. All these like different sounds, and like understanding those sounds, and then being able to sound out even, you know, more difficult words, thing, song, California, Mississippi, you know, being able to spell, like all these things you just kind of forget once you've already mastered those concepts, like how difficult it was when you were going through the process of trying to understand that. I just think it's something we can't like brush over. I think we need to like give it a significant amount of time and think about how that's a real experience. But let's actually come back to the introduction tomorrow. So that's just going to be our introduction to literacy chats and Fountas and pinnel. So we'll talk a little bit more about Fountas and pinnel on this channel. Literacy is something I'm very, very interested in. But, yeah.